the tendency to evaluate.
Can you put it on slideshow?
Yes.
Yes. Please continue.
So, yes, the most common barrier which we have naturally inherited, that it is the tendency to evaluate. We this tendency to evaluate make us make an inability to listen, and we evaluate the things on our own assumption and perception. And either we when we communicate with someone, either we approve or disapprove with another person's statement. We all have natural ability to judge and evaluate the situation and statement, but there is also a feeling with the statement. We may agree or disagree, but we should keep others feeling and others perception in view. Our decision may change accordingly, that whether we are emotionally in touch or involved in that discussion. And we can be the if the reaction is heightened in situation where feeling and emotion are deeply involved, so it makes the whole communication inefficient. We can achieve real communication and avoid this evaluative tendency when we listen with understanding and sensing how it feels to that person. For a healthy discussion, listening with understanding is most important. To focus more on this, I request Adnan to continue.
Yes, you can unmute yourself, Adnan.
Sorry, sir. So as Arslan said about the barrier, now I'll talk about the gateway to that barrier, that is listening with understanding. So what is this listening with understanding? Usually what happens is when you see someone angry, someone crying, so you understand that that person is sad, that person is angry. But what listening with understanding is implying here is that you don't just understand about the person, but you understand with the person how he is feeling. So what we can do is we can achieve the frame of reference of his thinking, like if he has some ideas or if he is going through anger, so you try to go in detail why the person is behaving in such a way, so that you achieve his frame of reference. Now, it is not widely used because of mainly two reasons that are lack of courage and heightened emotions. Lack of courage, like uh, here, what you have to do is you don't have to evaluate the person. You have to go deep into what he is thinking. Suppose I am having an argument with a person who is of some different ideology, let's say right wing. Someone is from right wing, and I am from, suppose, left wing. So, and if I am trying to understand him, so what I will do is I will shed my ideology aside and then try to go into his ideology. And what this requires is that you are shedding your own ideology and you are putting yourself at risk that you will be exposed to his ideology without any evaluation. So chances are that you may also switch your ideology according to him. So it takes a lot of courage to shed your ideology and accept someone else. Accept in the sense that you don't आप उसे अपने अंदर नहीं लेके आते, but you try to understand what the person is thinking. So one thing is that the people lack courage, so they are not able to understand the person in front of him. Second thing is heightened emotion. Whenever you are involved in a heated debate, like if I give an example of the debates that are going on in media right now. So what happens is someone is trying to portray himself as a nationalist, someone is trying to portray him as a hero or farmer, So there are heightened emotion, and everyone is at other extremes, and no one is at the middle of like mutual element. There is no mutual element between the two people. So there is heightened emotion. So to lower that, what is recommended is that you go through you take a help of a moderator. So in the presence of the moderator, what you will do is you will not go into extreme. You will not say that he is absolutely wrong, I am absolutely right. You will not put yourself at risk. Neither you. So what you will do is try to come into a common ground. So this is what is all about listening with understanding, and there are other things that you need to pay attention while you are listening to someone. These are some points that you reflect on what he is saying. You ask good questions, and you do not have your attention divided towards your phone or laptops. And these are some things, but these things will be later on covered by one of our colleagues. So I will not go into detail with this. But the point is that you listen with understanding. Now, the part two of the paper says communication between two peoples of different values. And of different values here means, suppose I give an example of a boss and a subordinate. So what is happening between a boss and a subordinate is they are at two levels of hierarchy, which is different, and they both will think in a different way. So obviously their values will be different, and they will have a hard time in having a common ground. So the communication between two peoples, F.J. Roethlisberger has portrayed it through dialogues. So similarly, we have tried to portray it using our conversation with each other. If it is audible, is it audible, sir?
No, it is not audible.
It's not audible.
No.
Is it audible?
No, what you should do, you should remove your headphones. Then it will be audible, mostly.
So,
And then play.
is it audible now, sir?
Very weak.
Better features than any other software. Hello, how are you? PowerPoint is the best software to make the presentation. PowerPoint has better features than any other software.
Okay, this is one slide, and I will tell you about the different schools of thought that are in there. So in this, if you have noticed, if that Arslan is trying to impose his ideology on me, like he talks about presentation, and then he says that PowerPoint is the best software to present it. Now, the one school of thought says that the communication between A and B is considered to be a failure when B does not accept the ideas of A, and the whole aim of the conversation is to convince A about B about the ideas of A, that A is correct. So this is what the first school of thought says. Into second school of thought.
Hello, how are you? What are you doing? Presentation. PowerPoint is the best software to make the presentation. Is there any software to make presentation?
Yes, there are many. One of them is Google Slides. And the best feature is that all of the members can work on together at the same time.
Okay, so in this video, as you saw, Arslan tried to go beyond that, imposing his ideology and ask about what the other person is thinking. So the second school of the thought says that a conversation is said to be a failure when the other person, B, is not feeling free to express his feelings, because B fears that his feelings will not be accepted. So communication is considered to be a success when both A and B are willing to accept each other's differences. So one more example that I would like to give: is it a bad luck or a communication or miscommunication?
only plants, 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 from one bulb. Size, very new.
So what we see in this video is that the shopkeeper is unable to gauge the intellectual level of the customer. So you might have seen this in your daily life that when you go to a hardware shop, you usually ask कि भाई साहब आपके घर में काम क्या चल रहा है? Or if you go to any electrical fitting shop, then also he would ask the same question. The thing that the shopkeeper is trying to do is understand what kind of requirements you are having, and accordingly he tries to tell you or sells you whatever the products are. Now here he is unable to understand what the intellectual level of the customer is, and therefore there is a miscommunication. It's not a bad luck, but it's a miscommunication that the person is not able to express and the other person is not able to understand. Now that the time is there for some extra thing, so I would like to bring this term psychotherapy. It is mentioned in the paper because Carl Rogers is a psychotherapist. So psychotherapy is in some emotionally maladjusted people who are not able to control their emotions. Communication with themselves have broken out, and as a result, the communication with others has also been damaged. So what happens is they suffer both within themselves and in their interpersonal relationship. So psychotherapy is just good communication. Is about maintaining good communication within and
Salman, are you there? Yes, Arsalan?
Yes, sir. I think there's the network issue.
So you may wind up the presentation.
Okay, sir. I think slide is also gone. So this was the last slide. So we want to wind up here.
Okay, so we will have some feedback and some round of questions. If you have any right now for the first team, and regarding the first article, I would request all of you to write it on chat so that we have enough time at the end. So let us look at the presentation of second team also, and then together we will have the feedback as well as we will discuss about the content of both the presentations. So please note down your doubts, your queries, anything you have in mind on the chat, please. All right. So now let us listen from Taj and Samal. Taj and Waqas. Yes.
Ajay, unmute yourself.
Okay, so the human voice, it is an instrument we all play, and it is perhaps the most powerful sound in the world, and probably the only one which we can use to start wars as well as convey the messages of peace and love also. But despite all of this, people experience that when they speak, they do not get heard. And why is that? Especially in the context of workplace environment, why is that some people get more credit than others, some people get heard more often. So we'll try to find the answers or reasons to this through our little presentation here. So Deborah Tannen, in her article titled "The Power of Talk: Who Gets Heard and Why," says that whatever we speak and listen is deeply influenced by our own cultural experiences. And this characteristic speaking pattern, which we learn in childhood, is known as our linguistic style. So the linguistic style is a set of culturally learned signals which we not only use to communicate our ideas, but also to evaluate one another as people and to negotiate our relationships in our day-to-day lives. There are various features of linguistic style, which are directness and indirectness of speech, pacing and pausing, the choice of words we make, and use of elements like jokes, figure of speech, stories, anecdotes, etc., and turn taking. Throughout this article, Tannen has mentioned various differences between men and women at workplace as far as their linguistic styles are concerned. And usually these are the reasons why some people get more credit than others and some people are heard more often than others. So we have identified 7 such major aspects or areas where men and women differ, which we will try to discuss one by one from now. So the first aspect is how men and women approach the power or the dynamics of the conversation. So men tend to be sensitive to the power dynamic and try to attain one up almost all the time. So this means that when men are in a conversation or are in a group setting, they try to outshine others and try to put everyone else on a one down position and try to take themselves on a higher position in a position where they can control others and tell people what to do. Whereas women tend to be sensitive to rapport dynamic, that is, they will not try to outshine the whole group, but instead they will take one down for the whole group and try to save face of the whole group. They will try to keep the whole group on an equal level. And this happens because we as children, boys and girls, socialize very differently when we are young. The second aspect in which men and women differ is getting credit. So even the use of small pronouns such as I and we could go in a long way in a workplace in getting credit. Tannen observed that men tend to use I when talking about what they have done, whereas women usually say we in the same places, even though they have done all the work by themselves. So this does not mean that women do not want to take credit or they do not want to get recognized for their work, but they think that if they are always blowing their horns and they are trying to say that I did this, I did that, it will look very self-promoting and degrading and people might not like it. So they use this pronoun we more often. But unfortunately, credit is automatically given to the person using I more often than the person who uses we. The next aspect in which men and women differ are confidence and boasting. So this could be explained better by an experiment which was done by psychologist Laurie Harthrington, in which and her colleagues, in which they invited hundreds of students to predict what marks or what grades they will get in their first year, both publicly and privately. So some subjects were told to predict their grades in front of the researcher, whereas some were given a paper and envelope to predict it privately. The results were such that women more than men, when were asked to predict their scores in public setting, they evaluated themselves to have lower scores than they actually got in their first year. Whereas in private scenario, the results were more or less same for both men and women. This again does not mean that women lack any kind of self-confidence in public setting, but it is that women try to impose themselves as less boastful. They do not want to boast about their own predictions, etc. So women downplay their certainty, whereas men minimize doubts. And as far as asking questions are concerned, men are more aware that if we ask too many questions, that could put them in one down position. People often think that those who ask too many questions are foolish or are some way inferior to the peers, their peers, which do not ask that many questions. Before going to the next aspect, I will try to introduce a word, term, conversational rituals. Tannen says that conversational rituals are those phrases which we generally use to start conversations, the icebreaker kind of phrases. So that can be complimenting a peer, or apologizing, or to show concern, or even a sentence such as "Where are you going?" So even though we are not considering to know where they are going, but we are trying to start a conversation. So these are conversational rituals. And the next aspect is related to the conversational ritual of apology. So this is not an apology, the real apology which we give when we commit a big blunder or a mistake, but these are rituals which we tend to use when trying to show concern, etc. So women, Tannen observed that women in workplaces say "I am sorry" more often than men. Ideally, this should not really matter, but still, this puts them in one down position, even though the other women know that they aren't really sorry about that situation. So now I'll like to invite Waqas to take the presentation further.
Thank you so much, sir. Am I audible? So the fifth aspect that we are going to talk about is feedback and criticism. Every feedback style has its own ritual element, which may cause severe misunderstanding. But what is this ritual element? Well, while giving feedback, women buffer the criticism by beginning with praise, but the men mention a concerning point right from the beginning. And this difference might put women at disadvantage in the workplace. Why? Because their communication may be labeled as vague or poor communication. Next, we have negotiating authority. At any workplace, formal authority comes from the position one holds, but the actual authority, it must be negotiated day to day by managing up and down. Now one might wonder, what is this managing up and down? So to answer the question, communication researcher Eric Tracy and Eisenberg studied the effect of status while communicating. And they report women show more concern about the feelings of the subordinates when they are in superior role as compared to their male counterparts. And last aspect that we are going to discuss is indirectness. What is indirectness? If simply put, it is a tendency to say what we mean without actually spelling it out in so many words. It varies greatly from one culture to another. And that is the reason why it may cause enormous misunderstanding, especially when the speakers have altogether different idea about it, how to use it. So how does indirectness impact the conversation at workplace or at business communication? Well, in all likelihood, women are more indirect when they are telling others what to do to avoid being called boss. But men, they will be indirect when coming to admitting their fault or weakness to avoid being put in one down position. So by now, we know that how the linguistic style affects or impacts the workplace communication and put women at disadvantage. So here comes the question, what is the best way to communicate for managers, or the question of what to do? Sadly, the best answer is there is no best way. Managers need to adopt tailored approach for different individuals, considering all the influences that impact one's linguistic style. There is also need to become aware of the power of linguistic style and its subtle nuances. Then only one can devise an approach which will make sure that everyone who has something to contribute valuable to the organization will get heard. We would like to conclude it by saying that as the workplaces are becoming more and more culturally diverse, it is a need of the hour for the managers to be more flexible in their approaches while dealing with the people they interact. Thank you so much. This is all from our side.
All right, thank you very much. I think let us we should give some reactions. There is a reaction tab here, so let us applause all the presenters today, and everyone should do it. and those who are not doing it, we may assume that they are not in the class. Okay. So, okay. So so there have been two good presentations today, and we will come to the content. I don't see much of the questions here regarding anything. So, is it you want to ask verbally, or you have not listened properly? So, okay. So appreciations are coming, but questions are not coming. So that also signifies kind of we attitude. So, all right. Now, before we get into the content of the presentation, let us, because this is also about, there are two aspects which we are going to cover with the help of these presentations. One is the aspect was obviously, the first is the presentation skills. And the second is the content, which is very important. It is not just any content which has been given to you. It's a content which is part of your syllabus, and they are very powerful articles. They have a lot of messages for your workplace, how you behave in your workplace, and how what you learn for that work corporate life. Okay. So let us take one by one the presenters first. Okay, so we started with Arsalan today. So request Arsalan to everyone should keep their cameras on, because now we are going to have some open feedbacks. Okay, so now let me just hear from all of you. So what do you think about Arsalan, and what are the suggestions for Arsalan, or what were his strengths and how he can build on those strengths? Yes. Okay, let us ask Arsalan. Arsalan, can you open up your mic? Okay, so what do you think, Arsalan, about your own performance? How did you, like, how did it all go? And what are the things you would like to improve, and how?
Sir, actually, I feel that my communication is not at level which should I have in this MBA program, but I tried my best to present, and I think our content was good, and there was some issue related to network, so we were not able to present our slides and video in a good manner, and I think that I should improve my communication skill more, because I have not that flow which should in communication.
What are you doing for that?
Sir, I just want to read English newspaper and many English articles, which and and after reading it, I want to write on in my language, that how much I can gain from it.
Okay, very good. Good self-assessment. So anyone who would like to add something for Arsalan, can something which can help him?
Sir, may I?
Yes.
Sir, actually, I know Arsan Bhai. He's from Bulandshahr. He's from area which is really background. This is not a very criticism, but it is something telling about him. So he belongs to a very backward village, and that's the whole fear that he knows. So he comes from a very humble background, and that's why the communication thing that he's talking about, his poor communication skill, is not because of his own. He's trying really hard, and I know him because he has asked some feedback from me too initially. And I really like the idea that they presented in the conversation that they played. So that is from my side.
Yes, anyone else? Okay, so let us listen to Adnan also. Adnan, what do you think about your own performance?
I think with more practice, I could have done better. And one thing that I have been able to reduce is the use of the word like. in my previous presentation, I used to word this very frequently again and again. For everything, I used to get like. So I think I've been able to reduce it, and with more presentation, I could have presented it in a better way.
So any feedback for Adnan? Anyone?
May I?
Yes.
I think Adnan should work on modulation of his voice. Sometimes when he speaks, it looks like he's very monotonous. So if he could modulate his voice in middle, could make more impact.
Voice modulation. So very, very well said. All right. So just to summarize about the two presentations of Arsalan and Adnan, the first presentation. So let us, if we look at the overall performance, I think that it was a decent performance. However, there are a lot of areas in which improvements can take place, obviously. And I really like the self-assessment, okay, where it was a very honest self-assessment. And I think that is the first step for being a good public speaker or being a good manager, or as we say, that if you are, you can assess yourself honestly, then it is a first step. Okay, so Arsalan, you understand your limitations. I very well acknowledge that. But when I asked you to, there was a slight difference when we were giving a presentation. When I asked you to comment on your performance, the flow was much better when I asked you to give a comment on your performance. So because you were speaking, not basically tied up in something, and you were speaking in a free flow. So that is a difference. In just a matter of 15 minutes, we can see the difference that you can, what you are capable of. Okay, so the direction in which you are capable of. So you should not lose any hope in that. You should not lose heart. What you should do is that, like you yourself said, you should practice more. And once you start practicing, I have seen people. How many of you know? Obviously, all of you know our Professor Parvez Talib, who is not in the class right now. He's in another class. You all know. You know, he belongs. He is from Hindi medium. Okay. So, but can you make out that he's from Hindi medium? And till 10th standard, he was the topper, obviously, of his district, but he was from Hindi medium. And the first, he came to Aligarh in PUC. At that time, there was pre-university. And from there, he started his journey as a public speaking journey and all. So, and there was no guide actually. The only guide he had was his seniors. And luckily, he got a lot of good seniors, so who helped him develop that. You know Professor Faizan Mustafa. How many of you have heard about Professor Faizan Mustafa?
Yes, sir. I know him.
He's a lawyer.
Yeah, law.
He's the principal of NLU.
Yeah, he is a second divisioner till his 10th standard from Hindi medium Muradabad. Okay, so you will not find it anywhere in his CV. Okay, so can you make out that he's from Hindi medium or he is from that background? So it doesn't matter where you start. Okay, what matters is where you end up, and it all depends on you. So for Arsalan, I would say that it's good that you have started, and I hope that you end up somewhere nice with your effort. Okay, so please keep it up. Somewhere I found that the energy was missing because you were so much concerned about the content. Okay, so if you can just, when you were having a free flow, then you were much better. Oh, and second thing, the proportion actually. So Arsalan, you should, like, the proportion was very much tilted towards Adnan. Okay, there was not the proportion was not proper of the content. Okay, Adnan presented the majority of the content, so it should not be like this. So there should be a proportion. Okay. As far as Adnan, you are concerned, Taj has pointed out, and I also noted that the voice modulation can be. Your ideas were very good. In fact, I really want to appreciate both of you on the creativity part, which you thought, the recording part and all, video recording. But it was not executed to the absolute T. So what you should do is, when you are using technology, you should test it couple of times, okay, and do the mocks properly. Because these videos and all, they may work, they may not work, and you should have a backup plan. Once you are using these things, you should have a backup plan, okay? So start practicing more and try to get more opportunities to present. I think that can really help you a lot, okay? All right, so let us come to the second group, Waqas and Taj. So Taj, what do you think of your performance?
I think I did well according to my standards, and I think I could really do better if I don't use fillers such as it is better to be silent rather than using fillers like such as unnecessary fillers. And I also need to work on non-verbal cues, because I think if I use my hand gestures, etc. more, it will be more impactful for me. And I tend to move my chair a lot, so I have to work on that.
Okay, good. What about Waqas?
Sir, I think for me, sir, myself,
Yes.
I think it was okay, sir. I liked some points, and so I was very much concerned whether I am looking at the camera or the screen, because my phone is in a different mode. So I could have practiced more using the phone camera. I practiced it, but in front of a mirror. So that's why I think there is some lag in delivering that kind of software.
So any suggestions for Taj and Waqas? So anyone? So I find that Taj was very expressive, and yes, really like the slides which you people have prepared, both of you, and the way you use the content, that you did not overdo with the slides. That is good. But I also felt that here and there, a few more slides could have helped. Like, for example, for just maybe a picture or something, a visual for explaining the conversational rituals or something like that, because these are new terms for the class. Okay, so when we say that target audience, so think about a target audience, and you want them to take it away. What do you want them to take away from your presentation? So, and also the summary, and you have to present a summary. A good presentations will always end with a summary and a conclusion. Okay, so try to basically give a summary so that people. This is also a tendency. This is also a bias which all of us has, that we tend to remember what is at the end. Okay, so we take away what is at the end. So a good presentation will always have a introduction. And that's what I liked in your presentation, that you introduce the problem and the issue first. So each of these articles is addressing an issue. Okay, is addressing an issue, or a central theme is there. So you have to make the audience aware of that central theme right in the beginning, so that they wait for like we said, creating a storyline, introduce the villain or the problem first, and then the hero will come, then the solution will come. Okay. So
something?
Yes.
Sir, actually, sir, we thought that the last slide that I spoke, what to do. So I gave the gist of this, and I thought that this is the summary that we are already giving it. So we did not put like the additional summary part, and that's what I think we get wrong.
No, it's not about getting it wrong or right. It's about it's just about because it's a process. It's a process. We keep on improving on all of these things. So there's no right or wrong, I would say. It's completely fine with that. I really like one thing about your presentation, both of you, the internalization of the idea, because you understood the idea very well. And I'm sure that you must have read the article a couple of times. So it is not possible, no matter how good our comprehension is. Please, I am for others also, I am making this point very clear at this point, because these articles are very heavy articles. Okay, these articles are written by psychologists. These articles are written by a lot of good researchers. Okay, and so these articles are loaded with ideas. loaded with ideas, loaded with examples. So do not be overconfident that you will read it once and you will get the gist of it. So please, for others, I would like to make it a point that take the cue from today's presenters, read it couple of times. Unless because you read it couple of times, you will not internalize the idea. What is the simple message? What is the flow? Okay, what is the structure the author is talking about? So then you will start getting the hang of it. For Taj, I would say that you are very free-flowing, Taj. Overall, you have a free-flowing presentation style, and there's like, but somehow what happens that once you are transitioning from one idea to another, so you can use some markers there, like some cue cards or something, some markers, or maybe you can use more examples. So because since you are free-flowing, examples will suit you more. So because
I had a lot of examples to give, but I was concerned about the timing. First, when I was presenting,
I think you did a good job in the time management, both of you. You finished on time, and you could have used 1 or 2 minutes. There's no problem in that. And one, because if you are now the trick here is that you are using an example, but you cannot elaborate on the intricacies because you are not reading a novel, so you cannot create the whole picture. So you have to be, so that is why cue cards sometimes are very important to give you that in this example, I have to say these 3 things. These are very important for the audience to understand the example. Okay. So that's what you can do.
So if the presentation was at 2 or 3 minutes longer, I would have been able to give the examples, which I had kept them for Q&A session. If someone didn't understand something, so I would explain that thing with examples. I didn't keep it in the presentation itself.
Okay, Vapas, your style is also like fine in that sense, and you did also a good job. But what I find that you are more of like it was more of a monotone. Okay, not expressions. Okay, so what you can do, you can also modulate a bit and use pauses sometimes. Okay, not fillers, but pauses. And pause after one idea, let the idea sink in, and then start the other idea. Okay, so somehow it felt that you are in a hurry to finish off because I think you thought that Taj has taken more time. Okay, so but that comes to our mind when 2 people are coordinating. These things happen. Okay, there's no worrying about it. Okay, so next time you can take care of it. So overall, it was a good presentation by all 4 of you. So again, thank you, all of you. Now let us come to the content here. And there are 2 very powerful articles, and I would request all of you. So it is not that the articles are given to certain teams to present, and they are only supposed to read those articles. Okay, all the articles are to be read by everyone. Okay, that's all a part of your syllabus. The first article, Barriers and Gateways to Communication, it's a very, very powerful article. In fact, it was written way back. And it has a lot of very interesting ideas. In fact, what it says, the central message of that idea is that usually we are always in a hurry to make judgments about others. Okay, and what happens in this process that we tend to make not good judgments, we can say bad judgments many times, and the judgments are full of biases. So they say that there are 2 kinds of schools. One is the explaining school, which says that I want others to agree with me. I will explain things, I will use facts and figures and whatever it is to explain my point of view, and others should agree. So they assume that communication is very logical. It's based on logic. So if I give logic, the others will understand. Okay. And here the goal is to make others understand our point and to agree with us. That is the first school. Okay. The second school of thought is basically the listening school, which says that communication is a 2-way process. It's a 2-way process, and it is more of an interaction. And interaction is based on the personality of the person and not just on the words which the person is saying. Okay. There are a lot of other factors which play. So we ignore the relationship many a times in communication. So that is the second school which says that. Now, it says that to make good judgments, we have to take into account all of these things. Okay. Now, one may argue that the job of a manager is to make quick decisions. If we start taking all of these issues into consideration, then we will not be able to make good judgments quickly. Now, here is a catch here. Now, so what this article basically talks about that there are different kind of situations. It talks about a lot of different kinds of situations, and if the situation demands you that if the task at hand or the negotiation at play is very critical. If, say, for example, a negotiation between two countries is going on, India and Pakistan, negotiation is going on, or you can imagine the tension and everything. So, making quick judgment should not be the objective. So, the central idea of this article is the solution which they say is that, though not a very universal solution, but they say to make a good judgment, we should suspend the judgment, but not necessarily delay the judgment. Okay? So you understand this statement. I will repeat this statement again. To make a good judgment, you should suspend the judgment, but not necessarily delay the judgment. So suspending it for a while is fine, not delaying it for a while. So thinking about, so I recall there are very interesting things which are coming to my mind. So I don't have the time to delve in each of them, but I would request if someone of you can. There is a theory in psychology which is called prospect theory. Prospect theory, and it is given by one Professor Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky. Amos Tversky is no more, and Daniel Kahneman got a Nobel Prize also in economics. So he wrote a book, very famous book, Thinking Fast and Slow. Okay. So it's a very thick book. So if you get the time, you can read it. So it says that their human brain, you can divide it into two parts. Okay, there's system 1. Okay, and there's system 2. System 1 is basically the unconscious one, which is very fast, and it is full of biases, heuristics. So we make judgments, and there is the second one, which is more logical and which takes time, but it is very slow. Okay, so we make judgments with using both system 1 and system 2, but more often than not, we use system 1. That's the reality, that we make judgments on heuristics and not on logic. And that is a tendency of every human. So this article also somehow talks about that kind of tendency. And what is trying to say that try to use system 2 a little bit more. And that will help you make better judgments. That's what they are trying to say. So I'm not going to go deep into this. Now, the second article is again also a very powerful article, The Power of Talk. And it talks about the author here, the central idea again here is that we confuse many a times what happens in the workplace. We confuse sometimes confidence with the leadership, the confidence which person shows in communication, we somehow correlate it with competence. So competence and confidence are two different things. And many a times it happens in the workplace. What is happening is because of sometimes conversational rituals and linguistic patterns. And what this article talks about, that there is some fundamental differences between how men behave and how women behave. And that is basically, they are made up and they are in the workplace itself. So they take their tendencies to the workplace, and when this intermingling of tendencies happen, and that's what Taj and Waqas have tried to explain, that men try to basically play everyone one down, and women try to play in conversation everyone one up. So they will use more we and togetherness, and they will naturally use it, whether in the home, whether in the workplace. Men, when they talk, they try to basically use more of I. Okay, so they try to take everything to their. So this is natural. What happens, and now this tendency to do that also evaluate. Now somehow I also feel that this has something to do with how many men or how many women are in the workplace. Okay, now just you can imagine if there is a female boss, then what happens? Okay, then maybe she can differentiate between competence and confidence from that angle. And this is happening today. Today, the modern workplace, you will find women bosses. So you have examples of Sheryl Sandberg, Facebook. You have example of Indra Nui, PepsiCo. You have example of so many examples here. Anu Aga, Thermax. Okay, you have example of this Melissa Mayer of Yahoo. So there are so many women leaders today, top women leaders, and at the world stage you have Angela Merkel, you had Angela Merkel and Dilma Rousseff and all those people. So now the workplace is changing. So how to negotiate this is also very much it's critical to understand. So this article basically talks about all of these things, and finally, what we can say that earlier it was IQ. Intelligent quotient. Today, nowadays it is emotional quotient we talk about, how we control our emotions now. But in the future, in fact, it's already started taking place. It's more about CQ, cultural quotient. So it will always be a combination of IQ, EQ, and CQ, which will give you the edge in your workplace. So they say that men are from Mars and women are from Venus. So I would say that men are from Earth and women are also from Earth. Deal with it. So we have to deal with it. So there is no shying away from that. It is usually said that a man does what he can, a woman does what a man cannot. So it is always this natural, you can say, mixture. Which the superior power has created in this world, that there are things which men are capable of doing and they do it better, but there are things which women do it better and they will always do it better. So many a times in negotiations and communication, these tendencies come in, and sometimes we tend to confuse leadership qualities with public speaking qualities, or with more of charisma, we can say sometimes, but it is not the case. But there is equal, and if more women are in the workplace, we will see these differences also. We will see the changes also. That's the central message here of this article. So I think we've had a very good session today, and we have exceeded the time also. So this is going to happen, I think, with these presentations a lot. So thank you very much. There are some comments on the chat also. You people can see about yourself, and I think I will request others to comment more now and more often in the coming classes. So today was the first day, and be ready with your suggestions. Be ready with your questions also, because it's not about that you are questioning your colleague or your peer. It's more about you are clarifying an idea. Okay. So it's more about that. So best of luck. Please, others also read these articles. They're very good articles. Okay. So let us call it a day. I think we had a long session. So thank you very much, all of you. So we'll connect tomorrow. And Parvez sir and me will keep on. Sometimes he will be in this class and I will be in that class. Okay. So you cannot prepare for that. All right. Best of luck.
Thank you, sir.